Hello, everybody. My name is Wendy Schneider, and I'm the coordinator of the Hamilton Jewish Film Festival. With me on Zoom today is Iris Zaki, the director of the film you just saw, Women in Sync. Hi, Iris. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, I'm very happy to be joining you, to be here.
Iris, this film, Women in Sync, you made in 2015, I believe.
Yes.
And it's very emblematic of your signature cinematic style, something you've called the abandoned camera. Can you explain what that is and how you came up with this unique approach?
So the beginning of actually me making any films, because I wasn't planning on being a documentary filmmaker, I was studying in the UK, in London, for a master's in documentary practice. But to be honest, I took this course because I wanted to live in London and I didn't have any aspirations to become a filmmaker. But at the time, as a student, I worked as a receptionist in an ultra-Orthodox Jewish hotel in North London. And I saw how curious I was to speak with the guests, people from different sects, different countries. So we had something in common because I'm Jewish, but I'm not religious. And there was a mutual curiosity. And I decided to make my final project for the MA about this encounter. And in order to film it in the most authentic, casual way, I decided not to bring a camera person or sound person and not to be behind the camera, not to hold the camera, because I wanted to have this a natural vibe, natural feel of a receptionist and a guest. So I put the camera on a tripod, and after setting it on people, I went back to being the receptionist. And the fact that the camera was unmanned created something very special, both for the guests and myself, because I forgot about filming from time to time. And the result was a very a natural and intimate portrait of this encounter. And when I started showing it at festivals, documentary and even Palm Springs and Rhode Island, and I realized how unique it is and decided to keep exploring this method of leaving an abandoned camera and capture the interaction that I have with people in an unmediated situation, like being a receptionist. So I decided to do a PhD, and my doctorate contained both making 2 more films where I explore this technique in different circumstances and different communities, and write thesis to reflect on, how it works and about, the bigger context of first-person documentary, ethics, representation, ethnographic themes. And the second film I made was Women in Sync. It was the first one I did under the PhD research, and I did it. First of all, the motivation was to really explore the method and see if it works again and brings the same, results of creating this very organic encounter. And I was looking for another position that will allow me both to be a visitor in a community that I do share a lot with. However, I am an outsider, and to hold a position there of serving people, the normal clientele, while filming it and conversing with them.
Now, what do you have? This is so interesting. what why did you choose that particular setting for your next film? What do you have in common with that situation, with the women in that film, with the location?
I have to say that first, it would be the fact that being a documentary filmmaker, taking her very first steps, I was thinking about the way, with no budget at all, being a student, I was thinking about the best atmosphere for me to create something and feel comfortable, because there is something very intimidating about asking people to be filmed, and being stuck in the middle of a place that you are a foreigner within these four walls. So I thought that going to Haifa, where my parents live, will be going from the hair salon to stay with my mom and dad would be a good option for that. So I thought about Haifa, and then I had to find like a community that I'm interested in, because for me it has to be authentic. I do have to be genuinely curious about what I'm doing. Otherwise, I have zero motivation. So I decided to focus on Arabs in Haifa, because I always felt that it's very weird that I grew up in Haifa, and Haifa is kind of like mixed, but it's at the same time divided, and we don't really mix Arabs and Jews. And I thought that it's a community that I'm really, really interested in. Having this even something very romantic, wanting to get closer, and also because my grandmother was from Egypt. My grandparents from my father's side are from Egypt, and therefore Arabic, even though I don't speak a word in Arabic, there is this attraction to me, very, very primal one even. And I thought that, I have to find a customer service position in Haifa in an Arab business. And then I had to come up with an idea. And that was quite, a thing and not to crack. If what position can I find that will allow me to communicate with people, but it's not a front desk position. And then you realize that there are not so many. And then I came up one night with the idea of a hair salon, washing women's hair. And I was so excited about it. And it overwhelmed me, even the idea that it actually, at the same time, intimidated me. I was like, will I be able to do that? That's a lot. But this kind of feeling actually makes me like it challenges me to do something when I'm a bit scared. So it was a good fear, a motivating fear. And the next thing I did was to go to Haifa for only 5 days. I booked 5 days because it was in the middle of my PhD. And I was exploring Wadi Nisnas, that I know Wadi Nisnas from childhood, going to buy hummus, that's it. And I realized that there are like 10 different hair salons for women. And I was very shy. And then I ended up getting a tip from a neighbor of my mother, who herself is an Arab, who said, the only place to go is Fifi's hair salon. It is, a hidden gem. It's perfect. It's from the 80s. It has the usual clientele. They've been coming there for years, and Iris is going to love it. And when she said, I didn't want to hear it, so I kind of blocked my hearing. When she said there are a lot of Jewish women there, I'm not interested in Jewish women. I was really, as a lefty in Israel, or peace
Advocate.
Yeah, I didn't want to say activist. I thought that it would be very important and interesting to hear the side of Arab women in Haifa. But I can say a lot about how it was a lesson for me, both as a political person and a documentary filmmaker.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear about that. But first, like, how long were you in production for? And when you first approached Fifi, she seemed like such a delightful, warm human being. How long did it take for you to persuade her? How long were you in production for?
So persuading was very quick. I went there with my father. Everyone loves him. And maybe one day you'll see Egypt, a love song that is all about him celebrating his life and his mother. So he's a very charming person. And I think that really taking my parents with me was like a very protecting thing. And right away they said, yes, by all means, make your film here. And it was so easy and immediate that it made me even more anxious. And there was like a period of time between the time that I got their approval and went back to London like happy, and the time that I was filming, because it was like something like November, and then I came back in June. And in between, I'm telling you, I didn't sleep very well because I was very worried. I sent my parents over. By the way, my parents are they divorced when I was 3, yeah, but they're okay with each other. So every time I sent one of them to just stop by and say, "Hi, you remember my daughter is coming?" And like, yeah, and it was like something that I was really anticipating and worried about at the same time. But when I went there, I spent 1 month. It took me some time to start rolling, because I was the initial plan was to put again a tripod, but then you imagine a place and you have all your written plans, but then you come to reality, and I realized that putting a tripod is not going to happen. People are going to fall over it, and the camera is going to fall, and health and safety was like a big no-no to do it. And I ended up waiting until my father brought this person who works locally, and together we built this rig. Usually it's a hanger for clothes, and
showed it in the film.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I wanted to finish the film with this reflexive element of showing how simple and low-fi, low-tech it is.
I imagine you also had to learn how to shampoo someone's hair.
Yes, that was a process, and I did have this learning
curve.
Exactly, because I was getting much better. There were some victims of my professional hands at the beginning. A lot of water came down. One particular lady who didn't like the idea, and I didn't film her even. So I wasn't filming everyone, but most of the people said yes, and that's because, as you said, the owners, and both Fifi and Nawal, the very funny and pleasant woman that appears at the beginning and the end is Nawal, and the other one is Fifi, and both of them, Fifi is a widow, and Nawal is single, and was never married or have kids. She doesn't have kids, and both of them were really so caring to the point where they were actually asking people to be filmed for me when I was too shy. So, having this like circle, bubble around you of such positivity and warmth, that is something that I have to be very grateful for, because otherwise such a casual and easy going, atmosphere that is translated into the film wouldn't be possible.
And it really came across. The other thing that came across was that you really made yourself part of that community. Not only were you shampooing, you can see scenes where you're sweeping up the floor and sitting by the door. It just felt like you really made yourself at home in that community. And I think that also was one of the reasons the film was so riveting, what you managed to accomplish.
Thank you.
Yeah, loved it. The film concludes with the following statement, which I'm just going to read. I went to my hometown to meet Arab Israeli women so I could hear from them about the difficulties in living as a minority in Israel. I found a complex reality that included love, acceptance, and respect for each other as women. I left not only with a film, but also with hope. Do you still feel that way?
Oh, about women, yes. About this very bubble of women in Haifa that are, if you think about it in the first place, that the Jewish women that go there, they go to an Arab hair salon. So these are women that are interested in socializing, because when you come to Fifi, you don't just get your hair done. There are no appointments. You just show up.
Oh, I did not realize that.
Yeah, and you have to drink coffee. You said before, and it's nice because you mentioned things that I was never asked, even though I had like hundreds of Q&As. But so sweeping the floor or eating food, because at the beginning I was like, I only eat and whole meal and this and that. And I was like, you're going to eat pita with za'atar and drink our coffee, and I did gain some weight there because that's a part of the place. It's like a hub. It's not just a hair salon. So I think that generally speaking, from the outset, this place doesn't represent necessarily the rest of Haifa or the rest of Israel for sure. But I also don't like when people go to the other extreme and say it's something that is so like doesn't exist and it's just like this utopic place, because it's not. Because people do mix in Haifa, and they mix even like if you're a social worker, your colleagues, some of them are Arabs, and hospitals and places. Yes, it is a different status to be an Arab in Israel. And it's a shame, and it's very sad. It makes me very sad because I think that the only way to actually make people get concepts about coexistence, about accepting the other, is to start from, like they say in the film, through education, to mix there. When you see the other, it's not an other anymore as a child. It is a human being, and we are all the same. But when you start separating, dividing people into groups with labels and stereotypes, you start feeling this like even fear. And in Israel, it is, that's something that I do stand behind in from things that I said in the film that was shot almost 10 years ago. It was 10 years ago. It was 2014 when I shot it. So there is this weight, and I would say on both sides, but I don't like saying both sides when the starting point is different for each side, because for us Jews, it is our country. We are not second best. And being an Arab is different. It's a Jewish country. And I think that is something that also if I'm looking at this film that I made, I was expecting to hear openly from women that are Arab women, things that would be nice to my leftist ear. However, being a Jew, I'm not a part of them. Um, I can actually think or tell you that I believe that genuinely Fifi and Nawal are very happy that they live among Jews and they have a Jewish clientele, and they're not, just faking it to the camera. But they do live in a bubble. They go from their home that is like a minute from the hair salon to the hair salon, and this is their political existence. They don't, trust necessarily the media. They think that they know better. But that is something that is very naive of me to think that I will be able to get what I want from Arabs that will, will fit my agenda for the film. And that is something that was a lesson for me, because, and I make films, this film, and also like Unsettling, that is about West Bank settlers, that I brought in the film, mainly people that are normative. I don't even know how to say, but I didn't go to find extremists.
But when you did, let's just talk about the film Unsettling that came out in 2018, where you set up a camera in the West Bank village of Tekoa, and you did sort of something similar to what you did in Women in Sync.
Yes, and it's very political. So I'm saying, like, these two films are very political, but are very subjective, and I'm not. And that's something that I can tell you now, 10 years after I've been around with, on many different stages, both academic and anthropological and documentary oriented and journalistic ones. And I can say I just bring a tiny, tiny piece of something that is way more layered and complicated. And you like this idea of people that the documentary should, contain everything in this 1 hour. I actually prefer seeing like nuances about realities that we think we know about, but mainly are mediated by the media, and the media, especially news. But I have to say that today, in this Netflix age, are looking for the more journalistic, sexy, tabloidy kind of like way of getting the rating that they want. And therefore, we are stuck with representations of communities that are within themselves divided, layered, complicated, being in a very monolithic way shown to us, and therefore, like, it keeps getting the same ideas. What I like about my films, even if people, would criticize me, and it happens so many times, and it actually changed me as a speaker. Even I love the fact that people react and say, "Oh, come on, that doesn't represent, the settler, or that doesn't represent at all Israeli Arabs or Palestinian Israelis." And then I would say, yeah, but does your agenda necessarily represent? Don't you, reflect your agenda on the reality that you are being exposed to? If we want to know, we have to go and live within people for a very long time. No documentary will ever be able to bring, the entire reality, because there is no such thing. It's always narratives of different people.
Exactly. And I think that's why your films are so special. Um, so we're living in a post October 7th world right now. The most traumatizing event since the Holocaust that ever happened to Israel and the Jewish people. I know that you did a documentary for the New York Times, days, I believe it was days after October 7th, when you went down to, I think it was a hotel to meet with survivors of Kibbutz Be'eri. Am I correct?
Yes.
And you interviewed them. And New
Not
York,
there, sorry, Kfar Aza.
Oh, Kfar Aza, okay. And that appeared on the New York Times as a short documentary. You were invisible in that you were just interviewing survivors.
Yes.
What
Very
was that
different.
What was that experience like for you?
It was a very hard, a tough experience, I have to say. The New York Times reached out to me on Wednesday after that Saturday, saying like, look, we want you, we know your work, we want you to go and, but it wasn't like OpDocs, the documentary division, or how you say it, department. It was like opinion. So it's different than, they told me right away, it's not going to be like my films. And they wanted something very like, as many people answering the same questions in order to bring some like variety of voices. And I went there, I was very, very scared, because it was, but until then it was the news, and then it's going to a very private place of people that have been traumatized in a crazy, insane way. And I was, as a documentary filmmaker and one that is very much interested in documentary ethics, and my responsibility, my loyalty is first and foremost for the subjects. Always. I mean, the viewers, I really respect the viewers, but I have this very unique position of someone allowing me to represent them to other people. And one has to take this responsibility very seriously. And I don't usually, as you know, as you said like before, I don't go to like victims. I show pieces of reality of very everyday life, of things that I'm interested in, and I take the time to come up with a concept and get myself familiar with the community in a way, or the people that allow me to film. And there I had to be this invader, a very like instrumental or like the media. I became the media, wanting people to tell me again, to relive such heartbreaking and really horrifying, terrifying stories. And I was a bit uncomfortable with that. But there was a woman that was in charge of the media. And, in Israel, after less than 24 hours, people all became producers. And generally speaking, where the state didn't function, people became volunteers, and they took, things to their hands.
They stand up.
Yes, but in a such a beautiful Israeli way. That's an aspect that I really, really, I'm really grateful for in this country, because people do care about each other very much, and they do want. They know how to. Sometimes it's the ugly Israeli behavior, but people know how to produce and lead. And this woman was in charge of the media. She's one from the kibbutz, from Kfar Aza. It was in Shfaim, that is a kibbutz in the center of Israel, not far from Herzliya or Tel Aviv. And she was the one that set me up with people that I interviewed. And she said, the reason I do that, even though it's only been a few days, is because I believe, first of all, that it's important to collect these
Testimonial.
testimonies, exactly. And also because I believe that it's therapeutic for them, because people came to her after they're being interviewed and said, thank you, it really helped me. So her statement about that made it better for me. But I made sure I don't interfere. I don't even though the New York Times wanted as many people as I could get, when I was with a person, I was with them. I didn't rush anyone. They wanted to have people staring at looking at the camera. And it means that they will look at, the lens. And I was sitting just by the lens. It was very hard for me to sit like that for a long time, but I wanted them to look at me, to see human eyes. I so much believe that such, small elements have a massive effect on how people talk. And, we were gathering, these testimonials, and we were crying. And for 2 days, it was very, very, very intense. I was driving this huge car, something like an ambulance in this size. And I'm a very small woman. You can't see via Zoom. Oh, but you saw the Zoom. And it was like there were rocket sirens in between, and it was manual. And we were carrying everything, and we were a crew of women only, both the camera woman and the sound person. And it felt that it is, in a way, easier than being at home. So it did give us a feeling of, being closer to the stories from the news. And then you see that one story, when you hear one person telling you their story, it's stronger than, in person. It is way stronger than reading the news about, a lot of people. And that's something about what I believe the documentary should do. It should bring you, one person's story, one family story, just like they do in fiction. Because sometimes you do get things better when it's, an individual story being told in a very intimate way.
Right. Have you, I know that you're very well known in Europe. You've shown your films in lots of places. Have you been back to Europe since October 7th?
Yes. I was in Italy and in London, in the UK.
What kind of reception? I guess to show your latest film, Egypt, a Love Song?
Yes, exactly. In London, it was the Jewish Film Festival. In Italy, it was the Three Religions Film Festival. And it wasn't very pleasant, I have to say. Both in London, I accidentally found myself in the middle of the chant, the march, the demonstration.
Okay, yeah.
And it was very, very aggressive and very... it didn't feel like, hippies protesting against the war. And we're talking about at the beginning of November. And I was still shaken up from what's going on here. And I wanted some, to escape and some feeling of home, because it's where I lived for many years. And it was very aggressive. And then in Italy, it was even worse, because I was asked on stage to, because I'm a lefty, because I express a lot of like empathy towards Gaza and Gazans, but I was kind of like expected to ignore the Israeli side of things and being like an advocate, not of peace, but of like, I don't know, like being very apologetic. And it made me feel really bad, because whatever I say, I'm hurting someone. And that's the problem with this binary. If you express some empathy to one side, you are being considered as ignoring the other side. But things are very, very much intertwined and complicated, and the discussion in the world right now is very, very much in black and white, and it's very different than my true belief of, complicated realities, and that we are, at the end of the day, we are all human beings, even though some don't behave as such, and they don't represent me from any side. And, if we think about women in sync, I do think that women as mothers, and, in the light of this very, very dysfunctioning and even criminal government here, we do need empathetic people to take leadership. People that, like when I was in high school, all the parties in the elections and their, manifests said something about peace and hope. But these words are no longer expressed in Israel. No one talks about peace. And what happened even makes it us get far and far from that. But it has to be the other way around, because the only way to go is to coexist, whether we want it or not, both sides. So that's what I think should be like. There is a very difficult, that seems even impossible project ahead us. And the people that are in charge are not right. They're not cut out for that. They think about themselves, and they have these, like, some of them are very extreme right. And I don't believe they represent, the majority of the people in this country. Because at the end of the day, I believe that all people want to live their lives and not to kill other people.
Well, I think that's a perfect sentiment to end our conversation on, Iris. I really felt that the first time I watched your film was before October 7th. And then I watched it again in preparation for this interview after October 7th. And, my feeling was that your film is a must-see for anybody who is interested in this terribly painful and complex conflict, because it really humanizes both sides. And I just want to thank you for your contribution. And thank you so much again for being part of our festival this year.
I want to thank you very much, both you and the viewers, and to say shalom. And hopefully one day I will join you in person. And thank you so much. I really appreciate this time with you.